Flesh merged with steel. Steel merged with flesh. One day, you will know the joy of creation.
Five Nights at Freddy's is undoubtedly the face of mascot horror games. Created by Scott Cawthon in 2014, FNAF has become a cultural gaming icon. With its abundance of lore, theories, and iconic animatronics, it quickly rose to popularity, and as such, there was bound to be fan games. During 2015 to 2017 was the golden age of FNAF fan games, with many either creating their own stories, using a unique art style or mechanic, and much more. But among these many creations, there was one that would take the route less traveled, as it turned FNAF from a horror survival game into an interactive dating sim. Sorry, I meant a visual novel story with a bunch of beams and adult jokes galore called Dayshift at Freddy's. Dayshift, or DSAF for short, was created by DirectDoggo in 2016. And as the name suggests, you play as the daytime security guard, where instead of facing the horrors of the night shift, you instead have to face the horrors of working in the fast food industry. From demonic crying children, to making an expired pizza with dog food on top, there was a lot to do and characters to meet. The most well-known character would be everyone's favorite Dave Miller, otherwise known as William Afton, or the Purple Guy, or the Hecking Eggplant. His goofy nature paired with his obsession for kebabs makes him beloved among the community despite the many crimes he commits. The DSAF universe was a bizarre world with bizarre characters, and everyone had some kind of gag or personality to them, and it would take a while to list down every character and explain what made them so great, but among this lovable cast, there was one anomaly. The main antagonist of the series, Dr.Henry Miller. Not to be confused with Henry Emily from FNAF, Henry Miller from DSAF is a ruthless sadistic murderer whose main obsession was to disprove death and show the world the joy of creation. What makes Henry so fascinating is his complete contrast to the game he's in, and his influence is so strong that he actually never appears until the final game, yet his presence can still be felt throughout the entire trilogy, making him essentially a malicious force of nature. Now the question is, why? In a world as bizarre as DSAF, how could one person be so heartless and evil? What caused him to be the man that he is? Where did he come from? Who was Dr. Henry Miller? Henry Miller was born in 1925 from a small suburb in Portsmouth, Virginia. Raised only by his father, Charles Miller, who was a strict man that liked to drink and gamble. Unlike his father, Henry was ambitious and had to work as a newspaper delivery boy in order to earn enough money to keep both of them fed. Henry was also made aware of the horrors of war at an early age, as he often read the news that he delivered. During this time, World War I had ended, but the tensions remained, which led to the Second World War, so it was almost as if it never ended. Henry would eventually join the Allies after his father passed from liver failure. He became a combat mechanic, so he mostly repaired or invented new weapons to use on the battlefield. However, this only made his perspective on life grow colder as he watched countless losses on both sides. After the war ended, he used his army scholarship to attend college in order to further his understanding of mechanics and robotics. It's also where he would meet and marry a girl named Martha Jones, later having a child named David. Years later, he would present his master's thesis, which was a book called The Joy of Creation, that explains how souls could intertwine with machinery. He first made this discovery when he uncovered the voices of a weeping woman and a choking child on his old radio, being implied to be Martha and his son David. Unfortunately, his thesis was rejected due to inconsistency, as he wasn't able to properly control the spirits. Yet. Despite the rejection, Henry managed to publish the book in his hometown, right after he burned down his childhood home and left for good to continue his research. Using the remaining of his savings, he started his own traveling circus called Dr. Miller's Fantastical Circus, using his knowledge of souls to make illusions that defied logic. However, the circus was actually a ploy for Henry to kidnap unsuspecting residents to further his understanding of the soul power. As the circus traveled state to state, he would come across a teenage William Afton, an orphan from the streets of New York who had been following the circus for months. Henry welcomed him aboard and gave him a job as a performer, and over time, William would grow to see Henry as a sort of father figure, which Henry would exploit. as the circus was soon under investigation as people reported the missing residents in areas that the circus would conveniently stop in. So Henry rigged his suit to malfunction, which led to William's death mid-performance. But William, not wanting to disappoint the man who gave him hope, repossessed his body through sheer willpower and kept performing. This was the breakthrough Henry needed, and as such kept William as his partner. Now with the circus gone and a golden test subject under his full command, Henry's dream to remove death truly begins. Sometime later in the early 1970s, Henry would open Fredbear's Diner that uses spring-lock suits manufactured from William's new business, Afton Robotics. Eventually, Fredbear's Diner would become a place of joy and fun, but soon Henry would secretly lure 5 children into the back room. However, the last one would prove most troublesome. A little girl named Dee wasn't stuffed into a robot as there wasn't enough space. So with no machine to hold her soul, she began to run amok, causing paranormal activities and oftentimes whispering to the customers about the truth, leading to the police to investigate. In order to prevent the place from shutting down, Henry created a puppet that would trap Dee's spirit indefinitely, and he also planned to blame the disappearances on their night guard Jack, who he had killed prior and stuffed into Fredbear. Lastly, to keep attention off of the diner, Henry would frame a local competitor called Freddy Fazbender's, a popular pizzeria chain that opened around the same time as the diner, but with over 50 different restaurants across the country. So the plan was simple. William would manage the diner, while Henry would continue his spree at different Fazbender locations. This would go on until an entity known as Blackjack would appear, a shadowy doggo figure that was a secret character you'd see in DSAF 2 who'd only speak in ciphers. In actuality, Blackjack is Jack's true spirit, or in other words, the main character's true soul, that was unable to pass on due to wanting vengeance against Henry. So one day, Blackjack gathered enough strength to physically drag Henry into the flip side, which was DSAF's equivalent of Limbo, where lost souls reside until they pass on. Blackjack planned to torment him and make him pay for his crimes by trapping him in the deepest part of the flip side called the Void for eternity. However, this was exactly what Henry wanted. All this time, he wanted to know what was beyond the afterlife and where the souls went. Now that he is literally in the bridge between worlds, his plan to bring undeath into reality is even closer than before, and Blackjack was far too consumed by rage to realize that he was the one under control. "40 years would pass and Henry continued to bide his time until Jack and his friends arrived. Blackjack had gathered them together, hoping to give them the revenge that they deserved, but it was all according to Henry's plan. As he's able to get rid of them all now, he can and will find a way to escape, and no one else will be able to stop him. Something to note about his boss battle is that it's very reminiscent of the Gigius boss battle from Earthbound, who was said to be the embodiment of evil and whose sole purpose was to bring the horror of infinite darkness to reality, which, if you think about it, is kind of similar to what Henry is trying to do by bringing undeath into his reality. While the fight is mostly metaphorical, one key difference is that Henry never attacks once. Instead, he is able to bring down any party member in a single turn by words alone, just showing how sadistic and manipulative he is, as one by one he brings up their greatest failures and regrets. This only left Jack, and while it's true that Jack is just a husk without a soul, only through accepting what has been done rather than what could have been, Jack is able to inspire the others to keep pushing on, and together they are able to defeat Henry once and for all. That was if we followed the good timeline. As I said before, DSAF has many routes, and something I left out is that all the way back long before the events of the first game is that Jack actually read The Joy of Creation. So if you choose to follow the evil route by picking all the purple colored choices, Jack slowly starts to embrace Henry's ideals. Which seems like it doesn't make sense, since what could he gain from helping the one who is responsible for all of this? Well, in truth, it's the same thing that happened to William. Jack had literally nothing left in his life, and even if he did, he was basically just the rotting corpse of the person he was, as Blackjack is the real soul. This route only happens if Jack chose not to embrace this fact, but rather find another solution, one he read in a book. So with that, his quest for vengeance begins, and he becomes much more cold and heartless, And it all culminates at the Faz bunker when William brought him down to confess his sins to try and clear his conscience. However, this was what Jack wanted all along, to get William at his lowest point, and to make his revenge much more sweeter. And most importantly,
it's time. Come. Let us now go forth and show those cattle the joy that our creation will bring. I always come back.
I think this quote would sum up Henry best. Truly evil people don't hurt people. They take pride in the pain they cause and try to blame their victims. Henry is the evil manifested from his environment. From such an early age, he had a low opinion on humanity due to the constant animosity of the world, and the only person who could have given him some kind of hope was a drunk who couldn't care less. So he had to give himself the role of the hero, the protagonist, the one who would save the world and achieve great things no matter the cost, believing that the crimes he committed were to further his ambitions and the greater good, which is almost symbolic of war. Always a constant battle to try and change things for the better, but in war, it doesn't decide who's right, only who's left. And that leaves us with Jack and Henry, as even Jack experienced hardships similar to Henry. He lost his parents at a young age and had to work together with his brother Peter to support the three of them. He would eventually lose everything, Dee, Peter, and even his own soul to Henry, and left with nothing but a husk. Yet, despite all that, he chose to push on and save everyone in the end, showing that even as a husk, he was always human, as opposed to Henry, who was already a husk. But poetically, the person who he took the most from would eventually become the person that would be his end. Despite being evil right to his very core, it's what makes him a truly remarkable character. It's what makes him Dr. Henry Miller. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. During the time I was working on my Dayshift at Freddy's fan game, Dayshift Simulator, I had literally hoarded a lot of DSAF knowledge, so I figured I'd not let it go to waste. And if you'd like to support more videos like this, please like and subscribe. Doing so will make sure I get noticed by the algorithm. And if you really want to support me, consider becoming a member. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.